Hello, welcome into Page Auditorium. I'm Danny Nolan of Duke Student Broadcasting, and I have the privilege of talking with Mr. Carl Bernstein, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here.
So, first off, we have to ask about Duke's campus. You're here finally.
Right.
Have you done anything fun at Duke so far?
Well, I unfortunately watched the end of the game, so I don't think that was fun for anybody.
That was certainly not.
But I walked around. It's so wonderful to be in a place where spring is happening. I live in New York, and we certainly don't have any daffodils and shad trees and cherry blossoms yet. So it's gorgeous here, and I'm really happy to be here. I'm always happy to be in Carolina.
Excellent. So,
good to be here.
Talking a little bit about your career as a journalist, I read that you started actually at 16 years old.
Right.
Why did you get into journalism in the first place?
I needed a job. I was in high school. I was a pretty bad student, and I had some writing facilities. And I could do pretty well on essay exams, but not much else. And I think my father sensed that I was interested in current events, and I come from a somewhat political background, and I've always read newspapers, and he had a friend at the newspaper. He thought I could interview perhaps and get a job as a news aide, a copy boy, and I did, and I largely because I had taken typing with the girls in high school, so I could type very fast, and that got me hired. But I loved it from the minute I went to work, and I've done it for 53 years since.
So one of the most well-known parts of your career, obviously, is the Watergate scandal and your
Right.
coverage of it for the Washington Post. Can you briefly describe just what it was like at that time in a as brief summary as possible? I know it's a lot to go into.
Not really. I mean, Bob Woodward and myself, we were 28 and 29 years old. There had been a burglary at the Democratic headquarters. And it's those who have seen the movie of All the President's Men or read the book, it's exactly as depicted therein. It was about trying to find out the best obtainable version of the truth, which is what I'm going to talk about tonight, about partly, which is really what journalism reporting is about, the best obtainable version of the truth, about what this burglary represented. And we didn't know when we started, but we gradually started to find out, and it was obviously a singular experience because it led us to a criminal presidency by a criminal president. Sui generis, unique in our history. President resigned, obviously. Our conduct was made the issue in Watergate by the White House rather than the conduct of the president and his men. It's extraordinary experience, obviously, and but it was part of it wasn't it was part of a larger example of the whole American system working, the press, judiciary, the Congress, etc., and the Republican Party as well as the Democratic Party, which insisted that this president had to resign.
And one of the topics of your talk is media in today's world, how it delves into the political world, how exactly the relationship ties together. And I'm wondering if you could go through what having the technology we have today during the Watergate scandal, how do you think it would be different, whether it be social media?
I don't think if history works. I think that things happen in their own time, in their real existing world at that time, and to lay a projection of how I can't imagine doing it. Meaning making that leap of trying to put the two together. They're apples and oranges. We live in a different time, and things happen in real time. One of the things I love about being a reporter is that it's really about finding out what's going on, not trying to project into the future or look at a crystal ball. And I'm not very good at that stuff.
And so when you look at it today then, the relationship between the media and the whole political realm, how do you feel it is at this moment, and where do you think it stands as far as maybe a comparison between the past? I know you don't like to talk about the history too much, but what are the differences and similarities?
I think that there's always a tension between people in government who are being covered and those who cover them. Is it more adversarial now at different levels? Remember, we're not talking just about the presidency. You talk about your community. You talk about the state legislature. You talk about covering business. You talk about, that reporting is really about what is news. That's the most important thing, that decision that a reporter or an editor makes. What is news? So really, what we're looking for then and now is to illuminate the real existing world and culture and conditions and institutions around us. And I think that remains the job today just as it was then. I think that there are great reporters now, every bit as good as then. There's a the term media has come to mean different things. It's a much broader definition now. But I think that my concern is about reporting, real reporting, the best obtainable version of the truth, and institutions and individuals who are committed to that. And I think that despite all the hand-wringing about the death of print, supposedly, I think the web is a great reporting platform. I think we have great reporting institutions, from ProPublica to the New York Times to the Washington Post. We also have a scourge of ideological media, which would be fine if it weren't confused with reporting. And that has very little to do with reporting, whether you're talking about Fox particularly, whether you're talking about MSNBC, which is a little bit more of a hybrid. It does some reporting. And Fox tries to do some reporting, but by and large, it's an ideological machine, masquerading as a news organization. And it's not a news organization in terms of the best obtainable version of the truth. But I think that it's too easy to lay the blame on the media, in quotes, for this. That we now have a culture in which there is far less interest among consumers of media and of news in the best obtainable version of the truth than there was at the time of Watergate, than there was in the 70s or the 60s or even the 80s. That, it's impossible to quantify, but, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, etc. And it's evident that there are tens of millions of people in this country who are not interested as consumers in the best obtainable version of the truth, but rather are looking for information that will buttress their already held, previously believed political beliefs, ideologies, religious beliefs, and they're not looking for the best obtainable version of the truth. And I think that's a huge cultural difference. I'm not sure how you quantify it, but there's an awful lot more of it now than there was then. And I think that we're very much the poorer country because of it. It is same thing. You can't put all the blame in Washington on the politicians and the political system because there's not enough interest in really being open to what's actually going on, as opposed to looking at everything through an ideological lens.
All right, well, Mr. Bernstein, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that.
You could see more news coverage on DukeStudentBroadcasting.com. Once again, for Mr. Bernstein, I'm Danny Nolan. We'll see you guys later.
Thank you.